Hi everybody, I'm Esther. In this video, I will introduce the past continuous tense. This tense can be used to describe an action that was ongoing in the past. It can also be used to describe two actions happening at the same time in the past. There's a lot to learn, so let's get started. Let's take a look at the first usage of the past continuous tense. This tense can be used to describe an action that was ongoing in the past. Let's take a look at these examples. I was walking in the park in the evening. So first, we start with the subject, I. For I, he, she, and it, we follow with was. I was. And then we add an ing to the end of the verb. I was walking. Now take a look at the whole sentence. I was walking in the park in the evening. You can see that this was an ongoing action and it happened in the past. Let's look at the next example. She was living here last year. Here, the subject is she, so again, we use was and then verb ing. Here, we have another expression that shows that this action was happening in the past. The dog, or it, was eating dinner 5 minutes ago. The subject here is the dog, which can be replaced by the pronoun it, and so we follow with was. And finally, Andy and Jim, we can replace this with they. For you, we, and they, we use were. They were, or Andy and Jim were, working at 9 p.m. Let's move on. The past continuous tense is also used to describe an ongoing action in the past that was interrupted by another action. This interrupting action is used in the past simple tense with the word when. Let's take a look at this example. I was playing cards when you called. Again, we start with the subject, was or were, and then verb ing. So this is the action that was ongoing in the past. I was playing cards. The interrupting action in this sentence is you called. You'll notice I used the word when to show the interrupting action, and I used it in the past simple tense, called. Let's take a look at the next sentence. The cat, or it, was eating when Eric came home. Again, the action in progress is the cat was eating. And Eric came home. You'll notice the past simple tense. This is the interrupting action used with the word when. We were sleeping when Anne arrived. Again, we have the ongoing action in the past. The subject here is we, and so we used were. And then verb ing. When Anne arrived is the interrupting action. And finally, Alicia and I, or we, were walking when we saw Mark. When we saw Mark is the interrupting action that interrupted the ongoing Alicia and I were walking. It's also important to note that we can also switch the order of the sentence around and say, when you called, I was playing cards. Or when Eric came home, the cat was eating. Let's move on. Another usage for the past continuous tense is to talk about two actions that were happening at the same time in the past. We use the past continuous tense for both actions with the word while. Let's take a look at some examples. The first sentence says, while I was playing soccer, she was watching me. You'll notice that both actions are in the past continuous tense. I was playing soccer and she was watching me. The word while at the beginning shows that these actions were happening at the same time. While you were reading, I was preparing dinner. Again, both actions are expressed in the past continuous tense. The word while shows that they were happening at the same time. While her husband, or he, was driving, she was taking pictures. Both actions are in the past continuous tense. And finally, while we were eating, the music was playing. Both actions were happening at the same time. Now, you'll notice that in my examples, the word while comes at the beginning. However, it's important to note that you can move the word while around in several ways. For example, instead of saying this, while I was playing soccer, she was watching me, I can move while to the middle of the sentence. I was playing soccer while she was watching me. I can put the while between the two actions. Or I can also change the sentence around and say, while she was watching me, I was playing soccer. So it doesn't matter which action comes first with the while if you put it in the beginning. Let's move on. Now, let's talk about the negative form of the past continuous tense. Here are some examples. She was not reading last night. The subject is she, and so we use was. However, before the verb ing, we add not. She was not reading last night. I can use a contraction and say she wasn't reading last night. We were not listening to music this morning. In this case, the subject is we, and so we use were. Again, not comes before the verb ing. We were not listening to music this morning. Again, I can use a contraction and say we weren't listening to music this morning. And the next one says he wasn't watching TV when his dad came home. In this example, the contraction is already there for you. He wasn't watching TV. You'll notice the word when. Remember, when plus a past simple tense verb shows an interrupting action. So, when his dad came home, he wasn't watching TV. He was doing something else. And finally, they weren't talking while the game was playing. The word while is in this sentence. Remember, that shows two past ongoing actions happening at the same time. So, while the game was playing, they weren't talking. They were doing something else. Let's move on. Now, let's talk about how to form be verb questions for the past continuous tense. Take a look at the first statement. It says, it was raining this morning. In order to turn this into a question, it's quite easy. All we have to do is change the order of the first two words. Instead of it was, I now say was it to make it a question. You'll notice that the rest of the words stay in the same place. Was it raining this morning? You can answer by saying yes, it was, or no, it wasn't. The next statement says, they were living there when the fire happened. To turn this into a be question, again, we just switch the order of the first two words. Instead of they were, we say were they. And again, the rest of the words can stay in the same place. Were they living there when the fire happened? And you can answer by saying yes, they were, or no, they weren't. Let's continue on. Now, I'll go into how to make WH questions for the past continuous tense. You'll notice that the examples here all begin with some WH words. For example, what, where, why, and who. Let's take a look at the first question. What were they doing last night? The subject of this sentence is they. So what you do is, after the WH word, you put the proper be verb. In this case, were. What were they doing last night? You'll notice that after the subject comes the verb ing. What were they doing last night? I can answer by saying they were playing games or they were reading a book. The next question says, where was he working last week? In this case, the subject is he, and so the be verb to use is was. Where was he working last week? I can say he was working in Canada. Why was she crying when she finished the book? In this case, the subject is she, and so I put was after why. Why was she crying when she finished the book? I can say she was crying because the ending was sad. And finally, who were the children staying with while their mom was working? In this case, the children is a they, so we follow who with were. Who were they or who were the children staying with while their mom was working? To answer, I can say the children or they were staying with their dad. Let's move on. In this section, let's do a checkup for the past continuous tense. Take a look at the first sentence. Last night, they were blank at school. I want you to try to fill in the blank with the negative for the verb stay, not stay. What do you think it is? Remember, for the negative of the past continuous, all you have to do is put not and then verb ing after the be verb. They were not staying at school. Last night, they were not staying at school. The next sentence says, 2 days ago, you blank soccer. Again, try the negative for the verb play. 2 days ago, blank, not play soccer. In this case, the first thing that's missing is the be verb. If the subject is you, can you think of which be verb needs to be put in there? The correct answer is were. And then we say not. What happens after that? Remember, verb ing. So, you were not playing. 2 days ago, you were not playing soccer. You can also use a contraction and say you weren't playing soccer. Now, try to find the mistake in the next sentence. Yesterday, she were reading at home. The subject of this sentence is she. So the be verb to use is not were, it's was. Yesterday, she was reading at home. In the next sentence, it says tomorrow, they were seeing their friends. They and were, that's correct. And we have the verb ing. So what's the mistake? Remember, the past continuous is for the past. Tomorrow is not the past. So instead, we need to put a word that shows the past. For example, I can say yesterday. Yesterday, they were seeing their friends. Let's move on. Now, let's start a checkup of the when usage of the past continuous tense. Take a look at the first example. It says Andrea and John blank when they blank hurt. Remember, when shows an interrupting action. It needs to be used with the past simple tense. So, let's first look at the second blank, when they blank hurt. What's the past tense of the verb get? The answer is got. Now, let's take a look at the action that was in progress in the past. Andrea and John, or they, well, what comes after they? Were. Andrea and John were. Then remember we need to add ing to the verb. They were skiing, or Andrea and John were skiing when they got hurt. The next example says, it blank not raining when the game blank. And I want you to use the verb start for the second blank. Take a look. When the game blank. What's the past tense of start? Started. Now, let's look at the first part of the sentence. The subject is it. So, what be verb do we use for it? Was. It was not raining when the game started. Now, find the mistake in the next sentence. I wasn't study at the library yesterday. The subject here is I, and so the be verb was is correct. Here, there's a contraction, I wasn't, for I was not. Now, the problem is with the verb. Remember, we need to put ing at the end of the verb. I wasn't studying at the library yesterday. And finally, we did meet our friends last weekend. That sounds right, but remember, we're doing the past continuous tense. Take a look again. The subject is we. We need a be verb. Were. Then what happens? Remember, we need to add an ing to the end of the verb. So we take out did and say, we were meeting our friends last weekend. Let's move on. Now, for this checkup, we'll look at the while usage of the past continuous tense. Take a look at the first example. While I blink, someone blink my bike. When we use while in the past continuous tense, we're showing that two actions happened at the same time in the past, or they were happening at the same time in the past. So, we need to use the past continuous for both actions. While I blink, I want you to use shop in the first blank. Remember, the subject here is I, so I need to use the be verb was. Then, verb ing. While I was shopping, now someone can be a he or she. Therefore, again, we need to use was. And then, the verb ing of steal. While I was shopping, someone was stealing my bike. The next sentence says, while he blank, I want you to use the verb cook. The subject is he, and so I need to use was cooking. While he was cooking, his girlfriend was cleaning. Did you get that? Let's move on. Try to find the mistake in the next sentence. Jane was looking for us while we get off the plane. The first part of this sentence is correct. Jane was looking. Now, the second part of the sentence, notice it's not in the past continuous tense. While we get off the plane. So, what we need to do is say, were getting. Jane was looking for us while we were getting off the plane. The next sentence says, I was watching TV while my wife sleep. Again, this part of the sentence did not use the past continuous tense. My wife is a she, and so I need to say was sleeping. I was watching TV while my wife was sleeping. Great job, everyone. Let's move on. Good job, everybody, in learning the past continuous tense. This tense can be a little difficult and a little tricky, especially when it comes to the when and while usage. It'll take some practice to really master it, but I know you can do it. Keep studying English, and I'll see you in the next video.